For this critical thought, I want to talk about something that fills me with absolute dread and complete undesirable to actually do it. Actually, two things. One is 106%ing Crash Bandicoot 4, and the other is playing a competitive game like Valorant, Dota, League, Dead by Daylight. Insert your favorite sports or esports related game here. The competitive game loop is one that has been time tested, refined, and it's something that is very specific in its gameplay and implementation, and why it just does not interest me from a design standpoint. The competitive game market, or esports, is one of arguably the most lucrative in the game industry today, probably jockeying with the live service, mobile, that kind of thing. But again, competitive games are also their own form of live service. There is huge money for publishers, developers, as well as for all the branding and kind of the corporate side of esports. If your game is one of the top games being played at EVO, or if it has its own massive league like CSGO, that leads to constant interest. It leads to people streaming the game and talking about it, and those people who are watching who are then interested in playing it, which drives even more. And we've seen this escalation in the esports line specifically over the past decade, with it becoming more and more recognized and more legitimized, not just among gamers. More colleges and schools are now having esports programs, esports kind of like scholarships, and again, there is serious money involved, and why so many developers have chased making the next big competitive game. Also, why a lot of these games tend to fail, because for everyone that makes the next Dota, or Fortnite, or LoL, or whatever, there are a lot of others that have come and gone. And I'm sure everyone watching this probably can't remember even half of the Battle Royale style games released specifically 1 year after Fortnite. We're not even talking about the games that came out during the PUBG era in this respect. But what is the competitive core gameplay loop? Because this is something that's very important to comprehend. Competitive games are not built the same way as your traditional game or your story-driven game, where these games are meant to have a lengthy engagement. 8 to 10 hour long action game, 80 to 100 hour long RPG, anything along those lines, where the idea is that you are playing this game from beginning to middle to end. Competitive games don't do that. They are more focused on a very engaging, short-form experience. A Street Fighter match is what? 90 seconds, 180 seconds, something along those lines. And most competitive matches and games are not counting like best of 2 or best of 4, that kind of thing, but most of them are maybe 10 to 20 minutes. With like exceptions to stuff like a League of Legends or Dota, where it can stretch to like 40 minutes to an hour, give or take. But even that is more on the extreme side. And you see, competitive games, they're not built around the complexity of the game itself. They are built on the player mastery. Again, if your game only has 2-minute long, 5-minute long matches, there's not a lot of room there to institute a lot of gameplay related depth and progression. It is more about the player growing. It's about how well does the player execute on the knowledge of the game. Do they know the best routes to go on a map? Do they know what are the best weapons, the best characters, what's good team dynamics? And these are things that can be grown and improved upon for hours and hours on end. But again, competitive games are not designed around kind of a lengthy form of progression within the game itself. Again, as we have seen over the past decade, competitive, and especially like the fighting game community, they are really opposed to anything that introduces or adds variance. That my character in a fighting game and your character in a fighting game should be as equal as possible. If they have unique abilities, those unique abilities are already known, extrapolated, and figured out way before there's ever a match. But if you try to add in any kind of progression, like my character has 1.75% more health, my punch is 0.75% faster, this is where people have problems. And it's where kind of the esports, sports kind of comparison comes in, where it's about presenting as leveled of a playing field as possible, so that at the end of the day, it's not about somebody getting a lucky item, or getting the better roll on a gacha. It's about how the skill of one player can beat the other. And these games, again, certainly work along those lines, or they become popularized by it. But the problem for me is that I just don't enjoy these games. And I thought about it more, I think I've come to the realization of why. And that is, I just don't like meta play in my games. No one tell Ramin that. If you don't know what we're talking about, meta play or metagame, it is the act of kind of learning or understanding the game outside of the game. These are the popular or least popular trends that's going on. What is the best place to hunker down in a battle royale? What's the best weapon? What's the best character, deck? You name it. And there is huge money when it comes to the metagame of any competitive title. If you don't believe me, here's a simple experiment. Close your eyes, and when I say the phrase competitive game, what is the first contemporary game that comes into your head? And if you want to mention in the comments, feel free. I will guarantee you type that game's name in on YouTube, you will find hundreds of videos that all sound like this. This is the best gun to use in this game. This is the worst weapon. This is the best deck for April 4th, 2022. No, this is the best deck for April 25th, 2022. No, you're both wrong. This is the best deck. This is the worst deck. This is the best character that everyone hates. This character that you hate is secretly the best character. Best tips to climb rank. Best tips to break every other player. This is the ultimate build. And again, I can just keep throwing out catchphrases. Maybe the YouTube algorithm will enjoy those. But there is a lot to a competitive game that occurs outside of playing the game itself. People will spend hours and days and weeks training and practicing and trying to figure out what is the best deck, what is the best combination that I can use right now. And like I said, the money that comes into this is not just from the YouTube and Twitch side. If you understand the meta and you use that to, let's say, take home first place in a tournament, guess what? Your build, character, weapon choice, whatever, will then be copied by every single person, and every single YouTuber and streamer will make videos and streams trying to break down or use that strategy. And it's why there is a never-ending chase or contest to keep the meta from solidifying. It's why competitive games are built on live service. That a developer does not want their game to be solved. That there is only one best weapon or one best deck or champion. And the problem for me with these games is that it kind of plays counterintuitive to the games that I like. For those of you who've watched, you know that I tend to play a lot of roguelike games. And one of the reasons why I enjoy roguelikes is for the variance that occurs on a play-by-play basis. I don't know what I'm going to get on this run. I can't comprehend, or I can't plan to get the best weapon or the worst weapon. I have to basically play by the moment. And for a lot of competitive-based games, while there is that hard, moment-to-moment between player or Team A versus player or Team B, a lot of what goes on in these games is about understanding what everyone else is doing. Dead by Daylight has certainly struggled with a meta problem for the past, I think we're up to like 6-7 years, maybe more so of it. Because any time that something becomes too powerful, it delineates out or it flows out to everyone else. So then everyone is going to start using that combination. And if everyone starts using it, then everyone's going to start using the counter to that option. And it becomes a case where a lot of games can be won or lost before you even start moving your character in a match. If you brought the wrong meta perks, or if you didn't properly spec your character right, or if you chose the wrong champion, who's now considered unpopular, or is the counter, or is being countered by all the popular ones, There's not much else you can do in that respect. And some games, if a player is good enough, they can overcome meta issues. But it's that situation of, do I make it 10, 15 times harder for myself? Or do I explicitly make the perfect meta build, meta champion, meta deck, and win easily for the next few maps or matches? This is one of the big things I saw with Marvel Snap, and how it is incredibly meta focus, thanks to having favored locations, and when a new card gets added. And like I said, when it comes to competitive games, they're not the most complicated to learn. There's not hours and hours of depth specifically to the game mechanics. A lot of that comes with the execution and mastery of the player's part. But once you're at that level, then it just kind of becomes a chase or avoidance of that meta. And I just don't find those games to be enjoyable. I like to play games that are either very variant focused, or it's about a challenge to overcome. I beat that challenge, the game is over, we move on to the next. I don't want to play a game that is basically hundreds and hundreds of matches of, well, just beat the thing that you know everyone else is going to do until someone changes it, and then we just have to rebuild and do that thing. And like I said, it's the very same kind of principle we see from a lot of live service and mobile games, where it's about presenting a very attractive short-form gameplay loop, and then how do we extend that out? How do we keep adding stuff that doesn't necessarily grow the gameplay loop, but new variations of it? And since Marvel Snap has been released, it has had many different new cards added. Every single new card added has changed the meta. Every new favorite location changes its short form. But it's not a case, and again, competitive and live service games are not about achieving an end. There is never a point, if you're playing a competitive game professionally, that you can say, well, I am now officially the number one player. I declare myself king of this game. No one else can beat me. It doesn't work like that. And again, for the people that it works for, it is a very healthy model, and it's one that shows no signs of stopping. But as we'll talk about in an upcoming roundtable or at one of our Kitty Games casts, it has led to a major influence as to games being designed, who they're catered for, and even just how they're being presented to a larger audience. But that is a topic for another day. So thanks so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do the liking, subscribing, and of course commenting what else. Check out my many books on game design available, well, all over, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where you examine the art and science of games.